Hey everyone, and welcome to our event on AI tool known as DALL-E. It's actually been around a while, but it got a really big under the hood improvement fairly recently. We're going to explore that. And you might have come here for a variety of reasons. I'm actually trying to capture that because the motivation to learn about DALL-E could be uh, uh, so many things, and this is a really new tool for us to explore. And so I'm hoping to get something out of you as well in terms of just what your experience is, your interest is. You might just be here to learn about new things, new advancements in the world of AI. A little bit about myself. I'm Dan Young. I'm one of the technical instructors here at Stormwind, and we're here to explore generative AI, specifically generative AI targeted for the generation of images. If you've heard about ChatGPT, I would assume that a lot of you have used ChatGPT, but let's just say you've only heard about ChatGPT. Originally, when it came out, it was really there for the creation of text. It would be text in and then text out, which is great. This tool that we're going to explore is text in and images out. And there are competitive products. My first exposure to generative AI was not ChatGPT. It was actually a tool called Midjourney. And some of you may have used Midjourney. Okay, so I see Photoshop. One of the people behind the scenes supporting me is a Photoshop guru, and he showed me some really cool things that you can do with Photoshop. So if you are into Photoshop, some of the new capabilities from Adobe are definitely interesting. And Lance is saying, hey, use it with DALL-E 2. DALL-E 2 is the prior generation. It is dwarfed by DALL-E 3. DALL-E 2 is kind of it was more or less just a proof of concept. I don't think it was tremendously useful to people in the real world. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. So JRR has used a lot. Stable Diffusion and Midjourney used to be kind of the only two players. I forgot to list Stable Diffusion here, but that's a pretty big player in the world of generative AI for imagery. And so what we're going to do today is really more or less have some fun with DALL-E. And I want to show you a few things that I picked up along the way. This is a new tool. DALL-E 3 came out in August, but in August it was released towards researchers. Okay, and they were trying to make it hardened with respect to creating racy content, offensive content, infringing on copyrights and things like that. So really, DALL-E 3 to the general public has been available since October. Today, we're going to work with it. We're going to talk about the guardrails that are in place that we should be mindful of. Because what we don't want is, if we are going to use this tool, we don't want to get our account locked out. And I do know some people who have got their accounts locked out because they're just misusing the platform. We're going to talk about tuning. We're going to demonstrate a workflow that I actually think is really powerful. And yeah, I think that is enough. I've already mentioned the fact, but let's just make sure we understand that DALL-E 3 is a capability of artificial intelligence to have text in and create an image really inspired by the artificial intelligence training that it's had, because it's been loaded with a lot of imagery, and the prompt that you give it. So it's inspired by that prompt, and we're going to go in, and we're interesting, Gabe, we're really not going to create. I haven't really explored that aspect of creating layers. Okay, so that won't be one of the things that we do. I'll just be straight up. But we are going to potentially give you some good workflows to get generated imagery that is useful to whatever projects that you're working on. This is a pretty open-ended tool, so you could be using it for a variety of different reasons. Right here, I am in the tool itself. So I am in ChatGPT, and it used to be external of ChatGPT, DALL-E, when it was in its infancy in the DALL-E 2 variety. But now, if you do have a Plus subscription to OpenAI, and you have a Plus subscription that allows you to get access to GPT-4, they've now rolled in image generation straight into the mainstream interface. You don't have to specify it. You don't have to say I want to create imagery, and uh, uh, yeah, this is now baked in. James, thanks for that chat. I think that's really good. Um, and I'll absolutely explore that. Cool. Okay. And I'm just looking at the chats, making sure, yeah, that I'm caught up. All right, so we're here. And let's just explore a little bit of the stuff that we can do. Okay, so I'm going to go to a prompt that I've created in ChatGPT, and I'll just give you a few different examples of imagery that we could create with it. And it's been trained on a lot of different things. So let's say we are thinking about science and we're trying to describe the sun. We could say the surface of the sun captured with a UV lens. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to take my prompt and it will then generate an image based on whatever it believes is aligned towards the prompt that I have and what it's been trained on. Okay. And so here we can see a pretty sophisticated image that is, it depicts things like solar flares. And I don't know about you and what you kind of read about on the news, but a lot of the news that I read is science related. And you see a lot of advancements in yeah, science. And a lot of times they actually have artist renderings of the things that are talking about because there isn't really a good image that is descriptive of it. And you can see that this is, maybe not hyper accurate, but to a casual, I do have a physics degree, but to a casual observer, it's got a lot of the things that we might be looking for. Okay, this tool isn't perfect though, and we're going to talk about exactly what it means when we say it isn't perfect. Okay, so and we're going to talk about some of the guardrails in place. I'm going to take myself off screen. I have two what we call GPTs. If you have been playing around with ChatGPT a lot, one of the new things about ChatGPT, and I'd ask that the people supporting me in the webinar could paste in the GPTs that I wanted to share. We have two different GPTs. There's one that is a good kind of basic prompt that is going to help you create photorealistic images, and another that is there to capture styles that you want to repurpose, which is very, very useful to the workflow that we're going to get in and explore. So you might be using a QR code reader, but you can just click on those links. Full disclosure, you absolutely, in order to use DALL-E 3, in order to use those GPTs, you do have to have a Plus subscription. Okay, so this is not a free tool when we go beyond GPT 3.5. This is a paid tool. It's the only way that you're going to do it. Okay, so just a few baked examples that I'm going to quickly run through just so we have a feel of how this tool can behave and how you can tune it. Okay, so one of the things that that I find is useful when I'm creating an image is I want to create it with parameters that are going to make that a little bit more interesting. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is the fact that we can affect our prompt. And DALL-E is fairly well versed in a variety of things that might surprise us. For instance, lenses, cameras, films, different image treatment has been trained on. And so if you are into photography, you would know about this camera. We're going to talk about some other cameras just so you get a chance to see it. This is not a photography lesson, but a Holga 120 is notoriously stylized. Like, you know, the cameras that are on our, you know, our iPhones are incredibly accurate and don't tend to manipulate the image too much. But a lot of the fancy cameras that are out there have a lot of different styles. You could add like a UV lens to get a very different treatment. Now, one of the things that I'm going to say later on, and I'll just kind of clue us in here, the baseline for DALL-E is surprisingly good. Okay, so DALL-E 2 did an okay job, but it didn't allow a lot of sophisticated imagery. The default for DALL-E 3, the new version, is it tends to actually generate really aesthetically pleasing images, which makes it a lot more useful. And one of the things that is worthy of exploring is to kind of challenge it. You can challenge it by smushing two very disparate things together. So this is a marble, and that marble has been melded with a fractal, specifically the Mandelbrot set. And these would be things that would be really painstaking to build as an artist and challenging even like mentally. How do you actually blend these two? And DALL-E, these are kind of just exploring, like, is it really capable of doing something that's pretty sophisticated? And the answer is, yeah, you can add a lot of different layers. Here's a black hole that's sucking in the Crab Nebula. It's capable of taking two disparate things, putting them together, which may be part of your use case in your workflow. And it has a deep training set. Here's an image that I've seen this done by photographers. One of the more interesting vegetables is a type of broccoli called Romanesque, and it exhibits qualities that kind of mimic fractals. And it does a bang up job creating images like this. Before we get into a deep discussion of this, we're to talk about kind of just the overarching strengths, weaknesses, and we're going to start with some constraints. And what I mean by constraints is this isn't something that we would consider a weakness. We would just simply be mindful of the way that DALL-E is created. Okay, so the people over at OpenAI are mindful their tools can be used for things that they don't want them to be used for, and we generally as humans don't want them to be used for. For instance, we really don't want artificial intelligence to start creating a lot of political imagery. We know the elections are coming up, and we don't want a lot of, fakes that are going to steer our election. That would be artificial intelligence having a deeply negative effect on humanity, and we don't want that. So there are guardrails in place, and that was one of the reasons why DALL-E 3 came out in August and we didn't get access to it in October, is because it was being red teamed, and that means that people are trying to, do malicious things to improve the guardrails. It has safety measures, nothing violent, nothing racy, no hate content. It doesn't want to create public figures. Okay, so if you can name a person, it's probably, hey, let's not create Arnold Schwarzenegger, Taylor Swift, a political figure, it's going to resist that. Okay. And it is going to do its best to not infringe on intellectual property of others, copyright, trademark imagery. And we got a great question. Can you import an image? That's going to come up on the weaknesses. Okay, so yeah, uh, interesting that you asked that. I'll answer that right now. So we're going to talk about a workflow that is similar to what you're asking about. I don't know your first name, P, but here's the deal. You can place an image into DALL-E, but what it's going to do is it's going to interpret it and create really words around that image. Okay. So you can't ask it to take an image and say, please take out this figure from the image. Okay. You can't edit the image. And I'll demonstrate this for you. But what you want to think is every new prompt that I come in with is fresh. It is not incremental inversioning of the prior. Now, if you played around with Midjourney, it's actually been 2 years since I've played around with Midjourney, quite frankly. But Midjourney does this very, very well. You can increment and step through an image to get through to what you're looking for. And that's part of the joy and the frustration of working with Midjourney. Patrick, great. Okay, so yeah, that's one of the things that we should be mindful of. It is also not as responsive to prompts. We're gonna talk about this a little bit, but when I work with DALL-E, I really try to make the main subject and my statement for the main subject very, very simple. And here's why. It starts to lose the story the longer your prompt is. Now, you can have things that alter the visual treatment and things like that, the lens, the style, those can be lengthy, but the subject should be as tight as possible. The more complicated your subject and what you're trying to do, the less likely it is you're going to get something that's usable. For instance, it's good at creating an individual scene of maybe one character, but if you add 30 characters, they're all going to be mutated. Okay, and you can get some really wild stuff. Okay, now here's what it's good at. If you've used other tools, there's a fair amount of knowledge that you have to have in order to use the right keywords that are going to steer it towards an image that is going to be useful. DALL-E is actually so incredibly easy to use without any exposure. It's frightening compared to like Midjourney, where I spent, I don't know, 50 hours with it, and I still felt like I was a hyper beginner with the tool. It's good at lighting, dimension, depth, in a way that is really shocking. And it is more likely that you're going to get things that are anatomically correct. For instance, if you're asking for a human, you want it to have the appropriate number of limbs. If you're asking for an animal, same thing. It is very, very good at recognizing and creating the right anatomy, which is problematic. You ask it to create a human and it's got the wrong number of fingers, it's garbage. And it can be really frightening when those things are wrong. Okay. Yeah, Skynet is saying, yeah, Midjourney is the opposite. You can give it a lot of detail. Yeah, Eric is mentioning about text. If you ask it to put text on the screen, it's a roll of the dice whether the text on the screen is going to be right. Okay? All right. Let's have some, yeah. James is saying it's terrible about negative prompting. I agree. Like, you could ask it, please don't do this. And I spent 2 hours with DALL saying, please don't do X. And it was like simple. I was creating art for a D&D session that my brother was running. And I said, don't give the cleric a sword. And it kept on giving the cleric a sword. And I'm like, that's not right. Okay. So yeah, I've had similar things. Okay. I'd say it's going to be tremendously useful for meme generation, although we're not going to explore that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about a workflow. I don't know why you came in and like what kind of imagery would be useful or interesting to you. Okay, so those are two different things, right? Useful maybe for a hobby that you have or a job duty you have. The second is um, something that just gets you interested, right? Sometimes we do things just, hey, we're keeping our mind active. I want to show you a workflow that I think is really, really useful. Okay. So one of the things that is going to make any image that you create with DALL useful is to have it affected by the style that is going to capture the way you want it to look. Okay. And one of the things about me personally is I'm not an artist. I am I grew up as a technical instructor. I'm very visual. I've created tens of thousands of storyboards for artists to render for me and the creation of some of my work product. But I'm not an artist per se. I can think about things, but I can't actually execute them. And I don't know the names of styles and things like that. So I'm very much a layperson when it comes to styles, right? I'm not versed in art, but we're going to look at art. I'm not versed in three-dimensional image creation, but we're going to look at using DALL for things like that. So one of the prompts that I've built into a GPT, meaning I basically baked a prompt, is stylistic capture, and then we can say, please create something in this style. And I think that's useful. Whether you are doing something, let's say you're brainstorming something, you're like, I've got this style, but created in this way. An icon created in this way. Concept art for a video game created in this way. I'm creating a Hallmark birthday card created in this way. All of those things, or art created in this way. That is a workflow that's repeatable that I think is pretty good. And you don't have to be very versed in that. Okay. So let's explore this together and have some fun with the tool now. Okay. So I'll take you into DALL and I'm going to go to my style capture tool. Okay. I'm going to go to the style capture tool. And what this is, I'll actually show you what the prompt is. Okay. So on the left-hand side, if you haven't logged into ChatGPT Plus, or you haven't done it in a little while, there are these new tools that you can build for yourself. Okay. So this is actually what we shared in the chat. I'll go in and explore just so you see. This is a tool that I built. The iconography that I added is one of the things we're actually going to explore. This little unicorn. I mess around with unicorn imagery just to have some fun. And this is the prompt that I created. Okay. So please help me characterize the image style, and goes on, provides specific details about what I'm looking for in order to capture ultimately the essence of whatever it is. It's really open-ended. So it could be computer game art. It could be maybe a photo. Iconography can be anything. Okay. And thanks for the chat there. Okay. So we're going to use this. I'm going to go back, and I've got a few different examples that I've got cooked up. Okay. So I've got 3 tabs open, and yes. Okay. One of these is World of Warcraft. Okay. Yeah, pretty popular video game still. I don't play it, but they've got some cool stuff. So we're going to go through 3 examples that are very, very different. Okay. One is for capturing art style, and maybe you can help me create a fun image based on these styles in the same vein. I wouldn't mind a little bit of inspiration, especially for this first one. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to bring up just a snipping tool. So we're going to bring up a snipping tool, and I've actually already had that in. Yeah. Okay. So Ryan, this is one of the reasons why I think this workflow is useful. Okay. So Van Gogh, and by the way, I had to look at the image because I couldn't remember the artist for Starry Night. I mean, this is one of the most recognizable pieces of art. Okay, but this is not my forte. But yeah, Starry Night, Van Gogh, and I've got a capture of it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to paste that in. And this is pretty new capability of ChatGPT. It's only been around for, I don't know, about 6 weeks, so you might be surprised. But you can absolutely upload images into. Now, we are not using DALL for this. DALL is generating images. This is really taking its image to text generation. Okay, and this is going to go through and it's going to capture the style. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why this might be useful is goes to Ryan's point. We are going to run into some barriers if we ask it to create art in a style of a recent artist. Okay. So ChatGPT is going to resist art from generating art in a style from 1912 and beyond. That's 1912 is a specific year for infringement on artists. So Van Gogh's been dead a while, well before probably 1912. But let's think about another artist who's much more contemporary, like Banksy. I think that's, one of the guys who's, very relevant right now. We would not be able to easily say, at least directly say, create artwork in the style of Banksy. I want you to create a new image that looks like it came from Banksy. Why? Because that's too contemporary, that's more recent than 2012, and so it is going to resist that. Okay. Now, great. We've got whatever this is. Every time you do it, it's going to be a little bit different. Sometimes it looks different, but is the spirit correct? Now, what I can ask it to do now is create something in this style. Create something in this style. So what do we want to do? Any ideas? Create a new image in the same style. But what should I create? Anybody want to chat in and give me an idea? Create a cat. Kite in the sky. Okay, kite in the sky is going to be a little bit useful. Kite in the sky at the beach. Okay, let's combine a few. The image is a kite in the sky with New York City as the backdrop. And there's also an octopus in the okay. So I think that's representative of some of the chats that we had. Okay, so that's a lot, right? We have the style that's hopefully going to be expressed in the imagery that we have, and the subject is now New York City, kite, octopus. And this is a roll of the dice. One of the things is we may not like the image that we get the first time around, but this is generative AI. I can re-roll. Okay, this is live. And it says, Error creating image. Sometimes it's gonna retry. It seems there's an error. Yeah, just hit reroll. Okay, so that's better. It can still crash out on us. And sometimes this tool goes hard down for a few hours. Yep, I wouldn't use another browser. I'm absolutely that's really their tool. It has really nothing. I'm one of the weird. I'm pretty technical, but I do use Edge, and a lot of people criticize me for it. But do. Okay, so this happens, and I have a choice on what to do about it. And for anybody who's used Dolly, you've seen this before. It's not a shock. I knew we were going to run into some. I'm going to hit it a third time. What I have found is this time of the day, OpenAI systems are really, really bogged down. Okay. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try this fresh. And I'm going to do that in the background. So I'm going to talk about some things and we'll look at slides. So I'm going to let this rebake. And we're going to see if I have some success here. But we don't need to watch and hope that OpenAI systems wake up and they start to behave better. And it's generally not, I haven't found that it's affected by the complexity of my prompt, although this one is fairly lengthy. Okay. Okay. I'm still getting errors. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of errors. Oh, you need to replace the word sky with kite. Okay, Joe, thanks for that chat. Okay. So, I want to show you. Oh, yeah. It's definitely not happening because I'm using the style capture tool. It's happening because OpenAI systems are right at the edge of what they're capable of. And I'm just chatting in the background, so just forgive me. Create an image in the same style with a kite in New York State. Okay, so that's going on in the background. So one of the things I want to show you, I kind of knew that we would run into at least a few issues today. And so I did have some images that were created. Here's a workflow that I thought, an example of this that I thought was really, really great. This is one of the examples that I was also going to take you through live. Okay, so I was shopping at Costco the other day, and one of the things that always strikes me is, okay, I'm going to take you back. This will be a little bit me jumping around, but the image was created. Okay. By the way, when I redid this, I didn't have an octopus in there, but the absence of the octopus is not something to get overly caught up in. Yeah, James is saying after my lunchtime, there are a lot of people in it. Okay, so I actually think this is, this is crazy impressive. Okay, it's got some of the style. Now, am I an artist? Do I have an eye for art? No, but when we think about what we asked it to do, it did do something in the style. It absolutely did something that is adjacent to the style. So, kind of one example of the style capture tool. Yeah, cool. I like the fact that you guys are looking at this. Um, okay, let me show you something else. And remember that if we were to just uh, come at it with create an image in the style of something specific. Now, you might be able to say, create an image in the style of Starry Night because it is so old in terms of the artwork. But a lot of the things that we're going to do these days are not going to be well-known art. Okay, it's not going to be I mean, start that is iconic art. Okay, so it has absolutely been trained with photographs of well-known art and things like this. But let's go to something that I have done video game development, not professionally, but I'm absolutely a hack programmer. And um, one of the things, and also a hack video game player, um, as some of the people that are supporting me in this webinar know all too well. But one of the things that I think is really powerful here is concept art. Okay. So if you're concepting something out, okay, and you might think, well, I'm not in the video game space, but we can use, I mean, this is a great place to use our imagine. You're concepting something out. You have a product that you are concepting out. You are taking something and you are going to rework it. Okay. So let's take this. We're going to take a snip of this. Okay. I'm going to take a new image. And then we're going to paste this in. We're going to capture the style. That specifically is new mount in World of Warcraft. I do not play World of Warcraft. And I'm, thankful for that. Just in terms of the time suck. But I absolutely appreciate the development that goes into these things. Okay. We'll see if that bakes pretty well. Yep, it's going okay. Now that was a rabbit. Okay. Yeah, this is actually a rabbit in a rabbit mount in World of Warcraft, as in video game characters can buy this in the World of Warcraft shop. And, this is the sort of thing that has to be concepted out. There's an enormous amount of time that is spent by artists doing this. And you could do this much more rapidly. So this is a rabbit, right? But what we could say is, all right, I want you to do a different mount for a different animal, but in the same style. That's what I'm going to do. Let's give me an idea for a different animal. Okay, so I got a dragon, a tiger, a snake. Okay, I'm going to choose aardvark. I'm not even sure what that looks like. Yeah. Please redo that image, keeping the same style, but make it chupacabra. Yeah, there we go. Now, chupacabra is, Mexican folklore demon, I think, something like that. And it's going through the creation process. By the way, the errors that we've run into, let's talk about those. OpenAI shut down new enrollments to the Plus subscription 2 weeks ago. It was announced on Twitter. You cannot give them money right now to get a new subscription. And it's for this reason. It's because the paying users are having a pretty miserable experience on occasion. My experience is not miserable all the time, but some of the time I do run into errors and it quite simply doesn't work. Okay. Quite simply just doesn't work. Okay. And so Oh yeah. By the way, I don't know. I talk to it. I just get in that mindset like I'm communicating with a normal individual. I don't think that actually has any benefit. There's no emotion to the system. Okay, so I'm gonna let that. I might have to just keep on hitting and just uh, banging away at the repeat. And that's what I'm gonna do in the background. While it's happening in the background, I want to take you through the example that I had characterized here for Glenn Fittich. So this is an icon that I think is really interesting from a stylistic perspective. And it's, actually a pretty old image, but it's in something that I think is timely. And and I asked it to create an image that that was a unicorn in the same style. And there's some things about it and I showed this to some professionals, including some of the people that are supporting me in this webinar today. And the initial reaction was, wow, this was one of the things I did on day 2, 3 of DALL-E coming out. And what's interesting about this is it's more than just a very simplistic expression of a unicorn. It's more than just a really simple look at it. And I'm chatting in the background trying to get a new prompt. Snake mount the same. I'm gonna switch it up. We're not gonna do chupacabra. There's some things that are here that are kind of deep. Now, it's two-dimensional, right? It's flat in that respect. But there's like a yin and yang that it incorporated into it, and there's that symmetry. And so one of the things that I like about this is the fact that it isn't doing something that is massively simplified to the point that it isn't super useful. Okay. Yeah, Captain Canada, I jumped to a new chat, and there are like kind of some rain dance moves that I've been doing. Sometimes it's just super busy, okay? Sometimes it's just super busy. And that's part of the issue at this time of the day, too. Let me show you a few things, okay? While we're here, there's a few kind of just lessons that I would give you. One thing that any of you who are here and have the Plus subscription currently is you can bake your GPT. You can create a GPT that is a prompt that does something that is special for you. Now, this is not DALL-E specific, but we can use it for prompts that would create imagery with DALL-E of a specific kind. For instance, let's say you have a need for creating repeatable imagery in a very, very specific style, but you're not actually going to be doing it. You may be the prompt engineer, which means you really know how to craft words that are going to be the expression of something that is going to get you what you want out of ChatGPT. You can create that prompt and now create that in a GPT. We're even going to have an event doing that. This is a pretty new feature. This would be the sort of thing that I would recommend that you do. Now, some of the things that go along with creating some stylistic treatments is some things that I think are just good that it's nice to know. These are images that were created from DALL-E with different aspect ratios, right? If, let's say, you are doing web development, you have a very specific aspect ratio that you're trying to hit, it is responsive to being asked for a specific aspect ratio. So I actually saw that there are a lot of people who work in Photoshop. So this is going to be useful to you as well. You know the dimensions of your canvas in Photoshop. You would at least be thoughtful about aligning the aspect ratio to what you're looking for there. Yeah. And Eric and James are asking about copyright issues with images that are created. Yeah, I mean, OpenAI says that it'll fight for you in court, and that's, they don't want their tool being undermined. We won't be talking about that too much. One thing that I've found useful also is to affect it with different camera types. So I'm not a professional or even amateur photographer, but I am adjacent to a few, and I know the impact of different cameras can have. And different cameras have different qualities. Now, most of the modern cameras, that are digital with good lenses, don't have any problems, are going to create pretty consistent imagery. But there are definitely known cameras that have stylistic treatments that you could match. Maybe you're creating imagery that is, circa a different age. Like you're trying to create imagery that's like Western, focused. You could specify that. You can also specify different lenses. So you could have like a super close-up image of your dog, or you could slap on something that's very, very stylized and look interesting on the sides of it. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. So. Do your GPTs replace the custom instructions? Yes. At least that's what I've found. I stopped using custom instructions a while ago because I started creating new GPTs instead, and I've used the custom instructions. So you could probably does respect them if they are compatible. I'm just thinking about that for a little bit. So custom instructions live here. Okay. So you can look at, here, fasted to do some word processing for me. And you can are my custom instructions even on? Yeah, my custom instructions have been on the whole time. But, what my custom instructions apply for are very, very different. I would say if you've gotten used to custom instructions, stop doing it, because you can kind of do the same thing with the GPT. And I think the custom instructions might only apply to just a fresh GPT that isn't qualified with anything else. That would be my hunch. Okay. Can we own the image that is created? Okay. So I'm not a lawyer. Okay, that just came in, but there have been court rulings this year that indicate that AI created content is not protected. Okay. Now there might have been other rulings, but I am going to tell you that I am aware of at least one court ruling that definitively, I don't know if it's got enough recognition in the court system and all that, but AI created content is not protectable under at least one court ruling. And I think that's Josh is backing me up there. I think that's great. Okay, cool. Sometimes protected content, it can be protected, but people still infringe on it. And it can be, we live in a crazy world. But yeah, that's the most recent court ruling. And I would actually say that court rulings are not in favor of protecting AI. They are going to be in favor of protecting humans over AI, which is fine. I don't want to get into the choices there. But it seems to me like I'm a human. I want to be protected. Okay. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. What ChatGPT says, I wouldn't say is going to hold up in a court of law. And the precedent of the ruling is more significant. Okay. So let's go through. Just want to show you a few other examples. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to have the same challenges. I'm just going to hit. Oh. Oh, because I hit the refresh button so many times in this, my limitation is 40 attempts. And because I was hitting the retry, that counts, which is kind of unfortunate. That is kind of unfortunate. Reach the current cap, 1236. That's fine. I want to show you a few things. Okay. So a few other things just to show you the spread of capabilities here. If you are thinking, well, this isn't going to be helpful to my, my world from a business perspective immediately. One thing that I would say is you never know when a skill is going to become useful. Sometimes, especially as we, our roles change. But one thing that's actually kind of cool is one of the most immediate things you can do is create coloring book art. And I know a lot of adults get into this, and I've dabbled with it. I get frustrated and I usually give up. But you could theoretically create an entire coloring book very, very rapidly with this tool, and it would be awesome stuff. Okay. So here's some examples of, this is one example that I have. I want to show you, yeah. I've had so many different days where I've run into that limitation. Okay, so I want to scroll up here, and when I talked about the different lenses, this is the effect of a lens, baby lens, on a setting. You can see it's very very different. Okay. It's not really good at doing kaleidoscopes. I don't think that's great. But here's an example of taking product imagery that you like. Okay, so let's just say we're business minded. Okay, we are business minded, and this would allow you to take a style of a product. Okay, using the style capture tool. So one of the, there's a lot of style design that is put into products like, Apple's iPhone. And you might be in a product team and you want to create something else, but keep that same style. DALL would be very, very good using the same tool. Here's an example of a skateboard. And I'm like, let's just do something really out of the box and different. Now, one of the weird things is I wasn't expecting it to capture the number 14. But what did it do? It captured certainly the color choices and the design from the rest of the perspective. And so one thing that I think this is useful for is I want to create something in a style. Maybe you're doing product development. I think that's a very useful application of the tool, and it would certainly be worth exploring, especially if you are going, I don't like what our internal tool, what I have. You might think this needs to be amped up, or maybe I like a style from, something that I've seen in the wild. Let's take on that style and repurpose it. Okay. Yeah. The font is a little bit different, huh? Font is a little bit different. Yeah, Holt is asking for me to share my script. I'll do that right now. I'll chat it in. This is actually a public tool. I have published this, by the way. It is a public tool, but I don't mind. I'm just going to take this and paste it into the chat. I'm not sure if the paragraphs are going to hold. Yeah, the paragraphs are not going to be maintained, but that's my prompt for the style capture tool, and it should work identically. So it's, you might want to improve upon it. I have spent some time on it, and if you do have improvements, shoot me an email at dan.young@stormwind.com, and I'd love to see how those improvements have improved the tool. Okay, cool. Any outstanding questions that you folks might have for me? I appreciate your participation here. Supposedly there's going to be a store for GPTs. Is that up? I haven't explored it. We've built a lot of GPTs on our team. Okay, and I think I actually don't even want to answer. I'm not sure, but you can see this tool is public. So if there were a store, you would be able to find it. Yeah, really cool capability. But I haven't explored it enough to talk about it in a in a semi-professional way. Okay, so I just don't want it. And Russ is saying no, it's not up at this time. Great, that helps me out, Russ. Thanks for that. Okay, so we pretty much talked about everything that I wanted to hit today, even though we ran into some barriers with just the responsiveness. You will run into issues. I had some canned demonstrations that are going to work pretty well. You are going to run into prompts that DALL just doesn't work with well. Now, what's interesting is ChatGPT is incredibly responsive to what you do. ChatGPT, GPT-4, you can mold it. It's just Play-Doh. But DALL is not that way. DALL is not that way. Sometimes you can ask it 40 different ways of trying to create the same thing, and it just doesn't work well. You have to take wildly different approaches if you get into what I would consider a rut. So don't battle it. If you don't like what you've gotten in the first 2 or 3 prompts, it may actually just not be responsive to your prompt in a way that you think it should. So you could be pretty good at prompting and not get a good result in DALL-E. That does not reflect badly on you. It's just it's not as mature a tool as GPT-4 and ChatGPT, which is the most mature version of their text generation tool. So with that said, awesome. Good. Thanks for that. So, if you're here joining us for the first time and you don't know who Stormwind is, thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Stormwind is an organization that is focused on creating great training. We have a lot of training in IT, cloud, cybersecurity, project management, artificial intelligence. We're going to be releasing a big new coding offering next year. And glad you could spend a little bit of time. Hopefully, at least had fun. Maybe you got something that's going to be useful. And if you or somebody in your proximity needs to get trained, I would encourage you to take a look at our website, stormwindstudios.com. Go to the courses page, and you can see the offering that we have. Loads of Cisco, Microsoft, CompTIA, cybersecurity, project management, a lot of certification type content, artificial intelligence, with more to come. And so if you know somebody, or you are that somebody who could benefit and desires training, reach out to Mike Fajan. He's one of our enterprise sales reps, and he can work with you to, tell you a little bit more about our product and the classes that might be appropriate to the subjects that you're thinking about. Okay? Cool. Yeah. And Pat, I do have CCNA. It's really a CCNA mentoring tool that I was exploring. So I'm a, let's just say, a former Cisco instructor and former Cisco expert. Okay. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for your attendance and participation today. Hopefully you had some fun. Thanks for joining us, and hope you can attend us at Stormwind in another one of these kinds of deliveries or one of our more official classes. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. Thanks for attending, folks. Bye.